I'm George, joined with Seth and Anna, and a special guest with us today that we're excited for you to hear from. And someone has just been introduced to Restore through Seth, a good friend of Seth, Jason Adam Miller. And Jason is the author of the book When the World Breaks, a book that re-examines the Beatitudes and the 8 paradoxes found in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount and points to a whole new way to find hope in midst of suffering. He's a pastor at South Bend City Church, an eclectic church community known for its thoughtful teaching, inclusive vision, and commitment to its city context. So we are so grateful to have Jay with us, and he is someone I think speaks such a helpful voice in bringing mental health and well-being and faith together in such a meaningful way. Because some of us, we come from experiences with our faith where perhaps our faith wasn't so helpful. And in a lot of ways, maybe it even got in the way. So Jay, say hello, and can you just introduce yourself? How would you introduce yourself?
Yeah. First of all, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. Seth is a long time, like best friend of mine. But you two, Anna and George, you've become friends as well. And so I'm thrilled to join you all. And getting to know Restored through Seth's work with you all has been really inspiring to me. So I'm thrilled. To introduce myself further, I don't know what to say. I really like going to concerts, and I really like food. And I love what you all are up to. Great question. The last one I remember was a Half Alive in LA at the Wiltern. But that was a little while ago, but it was excellent. Yeah.
What did you have for breakfast, Jay?
Today?
Or is it lunchtime there?
I treated myself, man. It's a Monday after a church day, so I took myself to a little place called the Early Bird Eatery here in South Bend, and I read a little book for a little bit. It's really nice.
All right. Well, you are ready to go, Jay. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about, obviously you're a pastor, but you're such a meaningful voice to so many of us. I remember when I was a younger pastor, my counselor friend would tell us they wouldn't send people who were struggling with an addiction or struggling with something. They wouldn't send us to us pastors. They were fearful. And that kind of broke my heart because I've always felt like the church should be the safest place. But places of faith haven't always been that safest place for people to go when they're struggling in some way. But what kind of opened your heart to care about this and bringing kind of faith and, a mental health journey as companions together?
Yeah, I think there's two sort of dovetailed things here. One is my own story. When I was coming out of high school, I was sort of flooded with this whole Pandora's box of traumatic childhood memories that I had not been aware of. And that sent me on like a 4-year spiral into deepening depression that became acute enough that I chose to hospitalize myself in my early 20s for about 10 days. And anyway, that disabused me of like any illusions about whether our stories, our wounds, our traumas, whether those are like things that you can keep at bay or whether you have to like face and work with them. And during that time, I mean, as is the case now, like I was really committed to my faith and I was trying to figure out how like faith had anything to do with this. I have these journals where I would like pray about it and, like rifle through scripture, trying to find all these promises about healing and it didn't work like that. I mean, I'm not saying it was bad to have those scriptures, but they weren't the kind of like shortcut to the healing that I needed. And at the same time, I wanted to bring my faith with me. And so that was a real like working out period of time, leading up to and during the hospitalization and afterwards. Like on the one hand, I have these faith commitments and this story that I still trust, but I don't know what to make of it or think about it differently now. And on the other hand, I have this experience. And then the other is a really, really close person in my life who battled a very acute addiction and was in the throes of that for more than a decade. And from time to time, I was the one sort of on the front lines with that person when it was at its worst and most destructive in their life. And then also, that destruction sort of folding out into other lives around that person. I've also then had the privilege of being on the front row seat for that person's recovery and the transformation in their life and the healing in their life that hasn't just been healing for them, but healing for me and for others. And so those two experiences side by side make it pretty hard to not ask hard questions about how's all this fit together. You know, like, 'cause part of it for me is like, if my faith doesn't have anything actually meaningful to say to these experiences I've just described, I should probably get rid of it, because I don't know what would be the point. You know, if you can't sort of run it through the stress test of these real human experiences, it probably doesn't have a lot to offer, you know.
Jay, I'm gonna quote you. Because you on your Instagram you did a video just kind of on mental health and faith, and you said this: if faith is anything, it ought to be the thing that reminds us we are complex, a way of honoring the depth and complexity of our humanity, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so, yeah, like, I guess when faith works until it doesn't at a particular time in our life, like we encounter some kind of experience and the faith we were given, you know, sometimes it doesn't work. And you could do one of two things. You could entirely chuck faith, or you can open up to maybe a new way of understanding your faith that could be more helpful, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the play. And I don't mean this in some sort of like, I'm not really big on like defending my faith in the sense of like trying to prove or argue for others. But I'll just say for me, from my experience, for probably a bunch of reasons, I didn't want to give up on it. So I kind of doubled down and trying to figure out if there was a version of it that would be helpful and healing. And my own disposition, my own approach to that is like, I'm not really just looking for like spinning it in any direction that works for me. To me, that kind of defies some sense of like transcendent truth. It was more like burrowing deeper into its resources, going deeper into its tradition, and wondering if these experiences could, you know, push me further into it beyond the version I'd been given. Because of course, any tradition, whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever, has had thousands of years to sort of express itself and pivot and adapt. And maybe the version you got isn't the only version, and maybe the version you got isn't even the most faithful version. And so to me, the invitation on all of that was to go further in and to find out that, in fact, there were readings of Christian faith that became deeply healing for me, but they weren't entirely the ones I had inherited.